Have you ever been overlooked, silenced, or told you don't belong simply because of who you are? What if the very thing they tried to erase became the spark that lit up the whole world? This is the unforgettable story of Ariyana Fields, a star who refused to be hidden. The call time was 4 a.m., but she arrived at 3:15. Nerves wouldn't let her sleep anyway. Her name wasn't on the poster, no trailer featured her face, and no one on set really knew who she was. But she knew why she was there. This wasn't just another gig as a background actor. This was her shot, the kind of chance people prayed for in casting lines and late-night subway rides. And even if she didn't have a line, she had a presence. She was ready to shine. Her name was Ariyana Fields, a 26-year-old with dreams too loud for silence. She'd been booked for a small scene in a major film, a courtroom sequence with a powerful monologue delivered by the lead actor. Her role? A grieving mother sitting 2 rows behind, reacting. No words, just expression. But that didn't bother her. She'd practiced anyway. Every blink, every tear, every breath. She told herself, if I only get 2 seconds, they're going to feel all of me in those 2 seconds. The assistant director walked in, clipboard in hand, scanning the group of extras like moving furniture. When his eyes landed on Ariana, something shifted. Not in her, in him. He hesitated, then leaned into a whisper with the makeup artist. There was a glance, then another, and finally a quiet directive. Yeah, can we place her maybe in the back row? Actually, make sure she's mostly in shadow. We don't want anything too distracting. Distracting! The word landed heavier than the lights rigged above her. She knew exactly what it meant. Her deep mahogany skin, her tightly coiled hair, her unapologetically black features. Too bold for the frame, apparently. Too much. No one said it out loud, of course. That's not how they do it anymore. But it was there, in the shift, in the way they moved her from row 2 to a seat behind a pillar, where the camera could barely catch her silhouette. She sat anyway, back straight, chin high, heartbreaking, but not broken. Because Ariana knew something they didn't. Stars don't need a spotlight to shine. They just need someone to look up. And that day, though they buried her brilliance, the world was already turning toward it. Before the big city, before the film sets and casting calls, Ariyana Fields was just a quiet girl from Montgomery, Alabama, a place where the air hung heavy with history and hope. Raised by her grandmother, Miss Laverne, a retired school teacher with hands like velvet and a voice like scripture, Ariana learned early that the world wouldn't always make space for her, so she'd have to carve it herself. Miss Laverne had a way of saying things that stuck. Not loud, not angry, just true. And the truest thing she ever said came written on a folded note, slipped inside Ariana's lunchbox the morning of her very first school play. Ariana was cast as a tree, not the lead, not even a speaking part, just background. Again. When the curtains opened, Ariana stood still in her cardboard leaves, watching other kids take bows and soak in applause. But backstage, she unfolded the note and read it for the first time. They might dim your light, baby, but stars shine anyway. Love, Grandma. She didn't understand the weight of those words at 6 years old, but they kept coming back. When classmates told her she was too dark to be the princess. When she auditioned for drama school and a casting director asked, "Could you maybe straighten your hair next time?" When she was told, "You're beautiful, but we're going in a lighter direction." Every rejection, every sidestep, every coded comment, that note echoed louder than all of them. It wasn't just encouragement, it was a shield, a promise, a whispered prophecy that one day, the world would stop trying to dim her and start learning how to absorb her brilliance. So when they pushed her to the back of that courtroom scene, when they thought they could shadow her face and silence her power, Ariana didn't quit. She went home, took out that same note, yellowed and creased, the ink slightly faded, and read it again. Stars shine anyway. She whispered it like a prayer, not for comfort, but as a vow. Because if no one was going to give her a front row, she'd rise so high they'd have no choice but to look up. And that rise, It was already beginning. The sun had long slipped behind the skyline, and most of the cast had already gone home. The director's chair was empty, the boom mic unplugged, and the air on set had gone still. But under the cold glow of a single work light, Ariyana Fields stood alone, not in costume, not on call. Just there, with a crumpled script in one hand and a hunger that wouldn't let her leave. She wasn't on the call sheet for the next day's courtroom scene, at least not as anyone important. But she knew the lead's monologue by heart, not just the words, the weight behind them, the ache in the pauses, the fire and the fury. She didn't have the role, but she had the story. So she rehearsed, not because she had to, but because greatness doesn't wait for permission. She walked through the imaginary courtroom, letting every line seep into her bones. She poured herself into a performance no one asked for, in a room where no one was watching. And yet, this wasn't the first time. Ariana had turned her tiny apartment into a one-woman studio. Her kitchen counter was a stage. Her bathroom mirror, a co-star. She'd act out entire movies alone, not for applause, but for readiness, because she believed something few dared to say out loud. When your moment comes, you better meet it already moving. She'd auditioned for over 70 roles that year, got callbacks for 3, landed none. And still, every night she practiced. Not the parts they gave her, the ones they never would. The lead, the lawyer, the woman who didn't die in the first 10 pages. Because Ariana knew what they didn't. You don't rise to the occasion, you rise to your preparation. So there she was, center stage in an empty room, giving a performance that could have cracked open hearts, if only someone had seen it. And though no camera rolled, no director clapped, and no one called, "Cut," something powerful happened that night. She looked into the dark, raised her hand as if holding truth itself, and whispered the final line with tears in her eyes. Justice isn't given, it's claimed. A beat, silence, then a smile, because deep down, she knew. Her real audition wasn't for them. It was for the moment she hadn't met yet, but knew was coming. It started with a shaky phone camera and a bored intern. A crew member, probably new, probably not supposed to be filming, had captured a behind-the-scenes moment from the courtroom shoot. Just a routine pan of the extras, a way to kill time on set. No one paid attention. It wasn't a real scene, just background, atmosphere. But there she was, Ariyana Fields, sitting silently in the third row, her eyes fixed on the lead actor. She had no lines, no direction, just a face, a presence, and a storm of raw emotion playing quietly across her features. She wasn't acting like an extra. She was living like the camera was hers alone. When the lead delivered his big, emotional monologue, something happened behind him. Ariana's face flickered with so much pain, so much restrained fire, that for a moment, the viewer forgets about the speech entirely. Your eyes drift to her, you feel her. The clip hit Twitter first. A 45-second video with the caption, "Who is the woman in the back? She's eating this scene up without a word." Then it moved, fast. Within hours, it was reposted by a major screenwriter. By morning, it had hit 1 million views. By noon, Viola Davis shared it with 3 fire emojis and one question: give this woman her own film, immediately. Ariana didn't even know it had happened until her phone nearly crashed from notifications. Calls, emails, direct messages from casting directors. Overnight, she went from uncredited background to the face everyone was trying to find. But it wasn't just the acting. It was the story people saw in her eyes, the quiet defiance, the authenticity, the humanity. In a world full of noise and sparkle, she brought stillness, and the world leaned in. Suddenly, everyone who had overlooked her was racing to remember her name. And those who had once called her too distracting now couldn't look away. She didn't have a publicist, no manager, not even an IMDb headshot. Just that clip, and years of unseen work that made it unmissable. Because when talent meets truth, and truth meets timing. It doesn't knock. It kicks down the door. And for Ariana Fields, the door had just blown open. It took exactly 6 days from the viral clip for Ariana Fields to get the call. Not a callback, not an audition invite, a direct offer. The voice on the other end was calm but electric. The kind of calm that only comes from someone who knows they've found gold. His name was Marlon Keene, a legendary director known for crafting Oscar-winning performances out of first-timers. He didn't ask Ariana if she was available. He asked where she wanted to meet, because he had a role written just for her. Ariana thought it was a prank. She almost hung up. But 2 days later, she walked into a sunlit production office in downtown LA, where Marlon stood waiting, not behind a desk, but at the door, waiting like she was the one worth meeting. "I saw it," he said, shaking her hand with a reverence she wasn't used to, "and I haven't stopped writing since." The role? A civil rights attorney in his next film, Inheritance? A woman navigating the legal system while carrying 3 generations of grief and grit. Complex, layered, fierce, and unapologetically, beautifully black. "You brought a whole history into that courtroom with just your eyes," he told her. "I need that same energy. But this time, front and center. No rewrites, no compromise, no lighten it up, no can you try it less? Intense." This was the first time someone looked at Ariana and didn't try to shrink her. They rode around her fire instead of asking her to dim it. She held the script in trembling hands. 127 pages, her name at the top of every scene. For years, she'd stood in the background, breathing life into silence. Now she was being given the mic, the spotlight, and the floor. And here's the thing about artists like Ariana. They don't need time to learn how to lead. They've been waiting for the chance. Her first table read had seasoned actors sitting forward in their chairs. The producer whispered to Marlon mid-scene, "She's gonna carry this whole damn film." He just smiled, because he already knew what the world was only beginning to realize. They didn't discover Ariana Fields. They were just finally ready to see her. The cameras were rolling, but something was off. It was week 4 of filming Inheritance, and Ariana Fields had already stunned the crew with every take. But on this day, the energy on set felt different, tighter, more electric. The scene was supposed to be simple. Her character, attorney Lena Brooks, quietly reviewing old case files late at night in her office. No dialogue, just mood. But when the director called action, Ariana didn't just sit and flip pages. She lived something else. She picked up a framed photo of the fictional client's family and held it like it was sacred. Her fingers trembled. Her breath slowed. And then, unscripted, unrehearsed, her voice broke the silence. "They trusted me with their pain. What if I fail them too?" It wasn't in the script. No one expected it. But no one cut either. She kept going. Not as Ariana, not even as Lena, but as every woman who's ever been tasked with caring too much, too silently. Her voice cracked, but her eyes never wavered. She leaned into that stillness, that ache, the kind of performance that doesn't just fill a screen, it reaches through it. By the time she finished the last line, completely improvised, the room was silent. Not polite silence, stunned silence. The cinematographer was crying. The boom operator whispered, "What did we just watch?" And Marlon, the director, stood from his chair, walked onto the set and said, "That's the Oscar scene. Don't touch a thing." It wasn't planned, it wasn't polished, but it was pure truth. The footage was so powerful that the studio moved the entire marketing campaign around it. That unscripted moment became the trailer's emotional heartbeat. Critics would later call it one of the most hauntingly human scenes of the decade. And Ariana? She didn't brag, didn't tweet. She just went home, stared at the crumpled note from her grandmother taped to her mirror, and whispered, "Stars shine anyway." Because she hadn't just acted her way into the spotlight. She had rewritten the script of what leading women like her could look like, sound like, feel like. In the world, it was no longer looking past her. It was standing still to watch. They used to cut her from the frame. Now the world waited just to see her enter it. The night of the Oscars, the red carpet shimmered with flashes and fashion. Reporters shouted names, designers flanked their muses, and nominees moved through the chaos like royalty. But when Ariana Fields stepped onto the carpet, the crowd fell into a hush, not from silence but from awe. She didn't wear diamonds or borrowed feathers, no high-slit spectacle or engineered shock value. She wore a gown hand-stitched by a black designer from Birmingham, deep emerald velvet that caught the light like it had secrets. Her hair, natural and regal, crowned her like lineage. Her walk wasn't practiced, it was earned. Cameras whipped in her direction, whispers turned into full-on frenzy. Who is she? That's her. From Inheritance. Wait, is that the scene stealer? But this time, they didn't say scene stealer with surprise. They said it with respect. A reporter extended a mic toward her. Ariana, just a year ago, you were in the back row of someone else's film. Now you're the front runner for Best Actress. What changed? She smiled. Not wide, but deep. The kind of smile that comes from surviving something people don't even know you went through. Nothing changed, she said gently. I've always been this woman. Y'all just had to catch up. And the world, the same world that once kept her in the shadows, stood still for her light. Inside the Dolby Theater, she sat front and center, not behind a pillar, not blurred in the background. She was the focus, the name in the envelope. And even if she hadn't won a trophy, she had already done something bigger. She walked back into the room they once erased her from and owned it. Social media lit up with side-by-side images, the shadowed background extra from that courtroom scene, and the queen of the carpet just a year later. The transformation wasn't just visual, it was cultural. Because when Ariana stepped onto that carpet, she wasn't just walking for herself. She walked for every girl who had been told she was too much, too dark, too different, too invisible. And now, she was the one they couldn't take their eyes off of. The auditorium fell silent. The envelope trembled slightly in the presenter's hands. Every eye in the room was fixed on the stage, but all anyone could see was Ariana Fields sitting tall, poised with a calm born of every struggle she'd ever faced. When the presenter's voice rang out, "Best Actress goes to Ariana Fields," the room erupted. Cameras flashed like lightning storms. Applause thundered from every corner of the theater. But Ariana's world narrowed to that single moment, that single breath. She rose slowly, her heart pounding with the weight of 1,000 no's and not good enoughs. She walked to the stage, every step a testament to the years of invisible battles, the roles erased, the sideline dreams. And then, standing at the microphone, Ariana didn't just accept an award. She carried a legacy. With tears glistening, she spoke softly but with undeniable power. This isn't just my win. This is for every Black woman who was told she was too much or not right for the story. For every artist who sat in the back, unseen, unheard. We are here. We are brilliant. We are unbreakable. Her words rippled through the audience, a reminder and a promise. The cameras caught her grandmother, Miss Laverne, wiping tears from her eyes in the crowd. The folded note Ariana had carried since childhood rested now in her palm, held like a talisman. That night, the world didn't just watch Ariana Fields win an Oscar. They witnessed the changing of the guard. The moment when a story that had been silenced for too long finally spoke loud and clear. From background extra to leading lady, from shadowed figure to icon, Ariana had become a beacon. Proof that light will always find a way through darkness. And as the applause swelled around her, one thing was crystal clear. They cut her scene because she was too Black. But the whole world just watched her win. Because some stars aren't meant to be hidden. They're meant to ignite. And remember this, when they try to dim your light because you don't fit their mold, shine brighter. Stand taller, because the world doesn't just need your presence, it needs your brilliance. Like Ariana, you were born to rise, to shine, and to change everything. Never let them cut your scene.